your memories, feelings, and even your sense of humor. Your consciousness is a puzzle, and scientists have been trying to put the pieces together for decades. In fact, they haven't even agreed on what the picture should look like. We have some clues though. Hey, we're going to take you on a journey through the most surprising theories out there. We'll start with the basics. Let's say your name is Alex. Alex has 86 billion neurons firing messages back and forth every second. How does that make Alex? Well, scientists don't know. They do know that certain regions of the brain are necessary for certain functions. So when it comes to consciousness, they've focused on the bits that seem essential. Take the prefrontal cortex, an area at the front of the brain that helps us plan ahead, make decisions, and, importantly, be aware of ourselves. Researchers at the University of Michigan used MRI scans to see how this region responded to one simple question. When you ask someone who their name is, they were answering outside of their conscious awareness. This is how it works. First, they got a visual stimulus. Then they responded before they consciously processed the question. So researchers wondered which part of the brain was responsible for this quick response. Their answer: the prefrontal cortex. It seemed to react independently of other areas involved in language, suggesting that this part of the brain could be crucial for self-awareness. So far, so good, but also quite expected. Lead researcher David Heiser did admit that the study only provided one piece of the huge puzzle. After all, this region of the brain has been linked to consciousness before. So while it's a vital clue, it doesn't tell the whole story of who you are, not even close. So what else do we know? Neuroscientist Christopher Koch says that we need to consider global neuronal workspace theory. Basically, he thinks consciousness happens when a particular pattern of activity spreads throughout the brain. Imagine it like a ripple spreading from the center of a pond. Start with a tiny pebble in the middle. The water around it disturbs. Then the wave spreads outwards, touching every part of the pond. That's kind of how this theory says your brain works when you're conscious. A small group of neurons activate others, creating a widespread pattern across the brain. Okay, great. But what makes this any better than just saying neurons firing is what creates consciousness? Well, it points to some pretty strange places. Scientists have found that anesthetics shut down this widespread activity, making you lose consciousness. They've also found that patients with disorders of consciousness, like locked-in syndrome, who are still conscious despite limited brain activity, often have damage to the connecting fibers of the brain. These connections seem to be important. They may be what integrate your experiences into one coherent whole. But if the picture is starting to feel too familiar, here's another twist. Global neuronal workspace theory suggests that the prefrontal cortex plays a special role, almost like a spotlight in the theater, helping focus your attention on what matters. Recent research has backed this up. Using MRI, researchers saw how this area lit up when people were asked to focus on their own thoughts rather than those of others. It's like the brain's way of saying, "Pay attention to you." Now, this might make you wonder, if the prefrontal cortex is so important, what happens if something goes wrong? Well, imagine a traffic jam in the brain. That's what happens in schizophrenia. Patients with this illness have trouble processing information, partly because communication in the prefrontal cortex gets blocked. This can affect how they perceive reality, causing hallucinations and delusions. You see, understanding your consciousness might just come down to understanding how different parts of the brain work together. But this isn't the only idea out there. Let's dive deeper into the ocean of ideas to find some hidden gems. Have you ever heard of integrated information theory? It's a relatively new approach to understanding consciousness. This theory is all about how the complexity of the connections between neurons in your brain creates your experience of the world. Think of it like a social network, but instead of people, it's neurons. The more interconnected they are, the more complex the network and the more conscious you are. This idea builds on the notion that the brain is a complex system, meaning its parts work together in a way that's greater than the sum of their individual parts. This means that just by looking at individual neurons, you can't really understand consciousness. You have to consider the web of connections they form. One way to measure this complexity is by looking at how much information is shared between neurons. In a highly integrated system, neurons share lots of information. This creates a sort of feedback loop where neurons are constantly influencing each other. This back and forth creates the rich, complex experience of consciousness. But what does this mean for understanding disorders of consciousness? Well, this theory suggests that even if a patient has a lot of neurons, if they aren't well connected, the result could be a loss of consciousness. Let's go deeper. Integrated information theory also introduces a fascinating concept called the phi coefficient. This is a way of measuring how much information is shared between neurons. The higher the phi coefficient, the more integrated the brain and the more conscious the person. Researchers have been able to use this measure to predict whether a patient in a coma will wake up or not. Those with higher phi coefficients were more likely to emerge from the coma, suggesting that the strength of connections in the brain could be a key factor in consciousness. It's incredible to think that just by measuring how well connected neurons are, we can gain insight into the mystery of consciousness. However, integrated information theory isn't without its challenges. One big question is how exactly you measure this connectivity in a complex system like the brain. Another challenge is that this theory has mainly been tested in patients with disorders of consciousness. Applying it to healthy individuals and understanding how it changes over time are also big questions. Despite these challenges, integrated information theory offers a unique perspective on understanding consciousness. By shedding light on the importance of connectivity in the brain, it's helping researchers see consciousness in a whole new way. But what if we told you that understanding consciousness might involve looking beyond the brain itself? Enter quantum consciousness. This theory takes things to a whole new level by introducing ideas from quantum mechanics. Yes, we're talking about the strange world of subatomic particles where things aren't always as they seem. Quantum mechanics is all about the weird rules that govern the subatomic world. Particles can be in two places at once. They can influence each other instantly across vast distances. These ideas sound bizarre, but they're well established in physics. So how does this relate to consciousness? Well, quantum consciousness theory proposes that similar principles might be at play in the brain. Here's the basic idea. Quantum effects could allow different parts of the brain to communicate and process information in ways that we do yet understand. This could explain how the brain integrates information from different sources and creates a unified experience of the world. But wait, there's more. Some researchers believe that these quantum effects might also play a role in self-awareness. The theory goes that self-awareness arises when quantum effects in the brain create a kind of feedback loop. This loop allows the brain to compare different aspects of experience and create a sense of unity. Sounds crazy, right? Well, it's not as far-fetched as it might seem. There's evidence that quantum effects might play a role in other brain functions. For example, researchers have found that the brain uses quantum effects to sense magnetic fields. This could help with navigation, allowing animals to sense the Earth's magnetic field and find their way around. Even if quantum effects are at play, there's still a long way to go before we can test this theory. Understanding how quantum effects work in the brain is a major challenge. It's an active area of research, and scientists are making progress. As technology improves, we might get closer to understanding the role of quantum effects in consciousness. So is the secret of consciousness hiding in plain sight? Well, Buddhist philosophy has been exploring this idea for centuries. According to Buddhist teachings, the self is an illusion. Our sense of identity is just a collection of changing experiences. Interestingly, this idea isn't too far from some modern theories. The self might not be an independent entity, but rather a pattern of activity in the brain. This pattern arises from the interactions between neurons, and it's constantly changing. Buddhist philosophy offers a different perspective. Instead of focusing on the physical aspects of the brain, it explores the mental and emotional aspects of consciousness. Meditation and mindfulness practices help us understand our thoughts and feelings without judgment. This can lead to a deeper sense of self-awareness and understanding. Some people might see this as a contradiction, but it's not. Ancient wisdom and modern science are pointing in the same direction. Both suggest that the self as we understand it might be more of a mental construct than a physical one. As we continue to explore the mysteries of consciousness, it's important to consider these broader questions. What does it mean to be conscious? How does the brain create our sense of self? And what can we learn from ancient wisdom? These are the big questions that drive our curiosity and push the boundaries of scientific exploration. In the end, understanding consciousness might be one of the greatest challenges of our time, but it's also one of the most rewarding. Every new discovery brings us closer to understanding what makes us us, and who knows, maybe one day we'll unravel the deepest mysteries of the mind. As we wrap up our journey through the amazing science of consciousness, remember, you're not just a collection of neurons. You're a universe of thoughts, feelings, and experiences. And while science continues to unlock the secrets of the mind, your own exploration of consciousness is equally valuable. Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep embracing the mystery of being you. And hey, if you want to dive deeper into the mysteries of the brain, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We've got a whole universe of mind-blowing content waiting for you. Thanks for joining us on this episode. Till next time, keep thinking big and keep questioning everything.